Greetings, I am Herbert Erpaderp, and today I'm going to build a Pershing, in particular the 28mm scale Pershing from Rubicon models, which is nicely depicted on the front of the box here, firing at some unseen enemy. The back of the box is pretty much like all of the other Rubicon kits I've seen before. There's a few paragraphs of information about the tank and its history, an image of the included decal sheet, and a basic painting guide featuring 3 of the 4 variants of Pershing you can make from this kit. Inside the box, you'll be surprised to learn there are sprues.
Nope, not surprised.
Oh, okay then. Well, unsurprisingly, you'll find some sprues. These are individually wrapped, and they're up to the high standard of quality I've come to expect of Rubicon's kits. This kit is, of course, intended as a wargaming kit, and that's pretty obvious in the way some of the parts are. There is some simplification of detail here and there, and some of the parts are a bit more chonky than you might expect to find in a display kit. But that's okay, this isn't really a display kit, though if you want, you can use it that way. Despite it being a wargaming kit, the detail is still rather nice. In fact, some of the parts, well, the machine gun that goes on top of the turret at least, has an option for a more detailed and realistically proportioned part, or a gaming part, which is more chunky and should better stand up to frequent handling. You also get a choice of either a World War II crew figure or a Korean War figure. Can you guess which one I'll be using? The parts in this kit are quite good. They're neat and crisp with nice detail, and that is kind of what I expect from Rubicon. Something I rather liked is that the guns are all slide molded. It's a nice touch, and it definitely looks a lot neater than when I try to drill out gun barrels myself. The inescapable mold lines are present, of course, that is why they're inescapable, but they're pretty minor in this kit and won't require a lot of cleanup. Everything is nice and neat, and I didn't spot any defects or obvious errors, and the kit went together without issue, or at least issues that were caused by the kit itself. I probably say this every time, but Rubicon's kits are really good and they keep improving with every kit they release, so going into this, I had no reason to expect anything other than a pleasant build. Stay tuned to find out if that's what I got.
Oh, so suspenseful.
Here's the decal sheet, complete with a fearsome tiger face for the front of your Korean War Pershings. Rubicon's decals have been good every time I've used them, so I'm sure these are more of the same. And here are the instructions. Pretty much exactly what I would expect from Rubicon, which is a good thing. The only complaint I have here is that they're a fold-out and not a booklet. I have that complaint for most kits, unless they've got a booklet, obviously. What matters is that these are clear and easy to understand, and all the things you need to do for the different variants are pointed out so it's quite difficult to miss them. Let's now use these instructions to turn some bits of plastic into a Pershing. We start with the machine gun. As I mentioned, you get the choice of a more chonky version for gamers, and a smaller, more breakable version for modelers. I'm using the modeler's version here because I guess I'm a modeler, maybe? The ammo box gets glued into the gun mount like so. This fit was a little bit tight, so I had to use a lot of pressure. Then the gun goes on top like so. This is pretty simple. It does seem like a kind of odd first step, but this will be nicely bonded in place and ready when we need to install it, so that's nice. I follow this with the commander's cupola, which does go together easily, but it was kind of hard to tell if I was doing this properly because it didn't quite look like it was level when it was closed. I think I've got it right though. You can, if you want, include the commander figure here, but by the way I've modelled mine closed, you can tell that I don't intend to use a figure. Shocking, I know. Like the gun, we'll be using this later, so I set it aside for now. I then glue the 2 halves of the turret together. This is shaped such that it's pretty hard to put it together wrong. The fit is pretty good and there aren't any gaps, though the seam where the 2 parts join could probably do with a bit of sanding. I start adding details, like this little hatch on the left. I believe this is a pistol port, for porting your pistol. There is some keying to guide this, but it's not quite enough to hold it firmly in place, so you'll have to eyeball the position to make sure that it's not at a weird angle. Behind that, there's a lifting ring, and the keying, though I guess it would really be more accurate to call it a very faint guide, is similar to the hatch we just put on. It's not too hard, you just can't rely on the keying to get the exact position. Here, on top of the turret, I add this little antenna. Nothing too tricky about this. Then, on the left side, a jack. There is a fairly subtle keying for this, so again you have to be sure that you aren't inadvertently nudging it out of position, but that's a pretty simple thing to do. At the front left of the turret, I add this brackety doodad. I've no idea what this is, but it goes here, and it's pretty easy to get this right. Another different brackety looking thing goes here, just behind the jack. There's a pretty obvious hole for this, so it'll be kind of obvious if you forget it. A second jack goes here on the right rear of the turret. There isn't much to guide this, but I think I've got it in the correct place. There's two barely visible mounting points for a lift ring just below this, so you probably don't want to cover those, otherwise you won't be able to install this part, and that would be unfortunate. On the front right, we have yet another part that needs to be eyeballed. This big basket for, I assume, either the crew's belongings or sacks of potatoes. I don't know, you could put a lot of things in there. So that's basically the basic details for the turret, and we'll add more to it later. There is also a mantlet that the instructions say to put together now, but it's not used for the variant I'm building. It's time to build the hull now, and I start by gluing the sides onto the centre part. It's not especially difficult, but it was slightly tricky to get these parts lined up, and that wasn't helped by the fact that the side parts seem to have a very slight bend in them, but that's nothing a bit of pressure can't fix. Once you've got both sides on, why not add a central wall part? There are guides on the insides of the hull for this, and it's very easy to place. The rear of the hull, or the tank's butt, if you want to be more technical, comes next. This more or less just drops right into place. Then we have these shelves, I guess I'd call them. They're for holding crew figures if you wish to model your tank with the hull hatches open. I won't be doing that, but I've installed these anyway, just to show you how it works. You're welcome. The final drive parts come next. First, the inner part, which sits in the large recess on the side of the hull. It should be pretty hard to put this on wrong, but if you really want to, I believe in you. Then, over that, we put the rest of the final drive housing, and again it would be pretty hard to put this on wrong. Surprisingly enough, there's one of these for both sides of the tank. It makes sense to follow that with track assembly. This'll be different depending on the variant you're building. I glue the inside part of the road wheels on first. In hindsight though, it might have been a better idea to do that after this next step, which involves putting this doodad into the centre of the drive sprocket location. Then I put the inside half of the drive sprocket on, and add glue to make sure things stay where they should be, and then I add the outer drive sprocket half. There is only one sprocket choice for this set of tracks, but the other style of tracks has two sprockets to choose from, so be careful to use the correct parts when doing this. Return rollers go on next, and these are individual parts. Fortunately, there's keying to make sure you've got the wheels rotated around the right way. It would be really unfortunate if you didn't have these around the right way. To finish the track set, there's two sets of links that go on the front. You might need to apply a bit of pressure, but it's not hard to get these into place neatly. These two parts have better tread detail than the rest of the tracks. It does make sense that they would do this. It would be more complicated to have this much detail on the tracks and have them be a single piece, so they do this for the sections of track that will be most visible. It would be nice if they did the same thing for the rear though. Still, they look pretty good to me, so why not attach them to the hull now? It did take a bit of kajiggering to get all of the mounting pins to engage with the appropriate holes on the track set, but obviously, it's not impossible to do. I did it, and so can you. Once this is together, it feels like a good solid assembly that not only looks nice, but should stand up pretty well to the rigours of tabletop wargaming. I thought it would be a really good idea to glue the top of the hull on, and that is something that will need to be done, but this was a mistake. It does, however, go into place nice and easily, and the fit is really good. There is a little bit of a gap at the rear, which I don't think is the worst thing. I used glue and pressure to make that gap a bit smaller. It's worth noting that if you're building anything other than the plain M26 like I am, you'll need to drill some holes in the hull, preferably before gluing it together. I add the side skirts next, which, if you can believe it, go onto the sides. These do go on pretty easily, though I did need to do a little bit of nudging and kajiggering. I think they look nice, and they do a good job of hiding the lack of tread detail along the top of the tracks. It was at this point that I realised I'd made a mistake by gluing the hull together. You might notice there's a hole in the front of the hull. That's where the machine gun goes. But before we can put that machine gun on, we need the mounting part, which needs to be glued inside of the hull, before gluing it together. You can see how this might be a problem. I kajiggered the part into place by sticking it to a brush with blue tack. I add glue while the part is being held there by the stick, rather than adding it before. That way there's no risk of making a mess, or getting glue on the backing part, having it fall off the blue tack, and then gluing itself to the inside of the hull, which would be an even bigger problem. Now to add some more detail to the hull, starting with the headlamps. These are pretty easy to install and, well, they do look a bit chunky. This is for obvious reasons, though it would be nice if there was the option of modeler parts for these, like the machine gun I built at the start, but I don't think these look too bad anyway. I follow that by adding these little, I guess they're towing or lifting points. These two parts are different and aren't interchangeable, so make sure you're putting them in the right place, or the consequences may be dire. I then add this thing. I think it's a horn or maybe a siren. Whatever it is, it's got a brush guard over it, and this is certainly another gamer part. It's no mystery why this is chunky, and parts that should be a void are instead filled with plastic. It's to make it more durable, but again, a modeler's version of this part would be nice too. At the left rear, we add this box. The keying does make this really easy to place. Next, I add the big stowage bins along the sides of the hull. I would imagine these are filled with, I don't know, corn dogs? What's a stereotypical American food? Maybe it's looted sauerkraut.
You're getting distracted, Herbert.
It's because installing these parts is so easy, you could do it in your sleep. Well, maybe not quite, but it is rather easy. Here you can see down into the hull to those little shelves I installed earlier. I'm pretty sure that crew for these positions aren't included in the kit, though I could have missed them. If you wanted, you could model these hatches open and put some crew in. I've opted for closed hatches because, well, that's what I like. The whole machine gun goes on next, and because I definitely didn't forget the backing plate part, it goes on nice and easily with no issue. The exhaust comes next, and this is combined with the travel lock for the main gun, at least in the M26 that I'm building. I glue this combination together, and then stick it to the rear of the hull before the glue can set. I then configure the gun lock into the position I want it, and then I add more glue because I want the glue god to like me. That's a nice tank butt. It's not quite complete though. The towing hitch goes here. It slides up and into the mounting bracket like so. This forces the part to be nice and straight, which is pretty helpful. On the sides of the engine deck there's a couple of lifty ring things, and again these have guide marks, but not any real keying, so you do need to do a bit of eyeballing and nudging, and that's the hull done. Let's get back to the turret. I liked the way the canvas mantlet thing looked, whatever that's called, and that was pretty much my main reason for building this variant. So I glue that part on, and the shape makes it pretty easy to get into the correct position. Under that, I install this part, which, as you might imagine, fills in the bottom of the turret so there's not a big void there. The mantlet then goes on over that. There's no inner mantlet doodaddery for this variant, like some of the others have, and that also means you don't get any say in the elevation of the gun, but I wouldn't say that's a problem. I then glue in the commander's hatch that I assembled all those hours ago at the start of the video. The keying makes it so you can only put this on one way, which is probably how it should be. On the rear of the turret, I install this whatever it is, and I'm sure it's very important and has a very important name. I follow that with some spare track links. This nice rack of 3 links has keying and is fairly easy to position, and the instructions, very helpfully, include a positioning reference for this. I like that kind of thing, and wish more instructions had them. The spare track links are optional parts. For the rack of 3 links though, the raised bit of keying on the turret would look kind of bad, so you would have to remove it. And that wouldn't really be hard, just a little bit inconvenient. I do like the way the spare tracks look though, so I've put them on. The single link doesn't have any obvious keying, so it won't need any work if you do choose to omit it. The lack of keying does mean you'll need to eyeball its position, but the reference diagram makes that trivial. In front of the commander's cupola, I add this gun sighting doodad, or at least that's what I think it is. And then I add the machine gun from the start of the video. You can have this facing pretty much any direction you like. I've chosen rearwards because why not? Though if you want to minimize the chance it'll snag something and get broken, you might want to have it facing forward. The final, and possibly most important touch, is the main gun. You can see this is keyed, and it can go in 2 ways. I would suggest you find the side you remove the mold lines from the most neatly and have that facing upwards. Otherwise it doesn't really matter which way it goes, the muzzle brake should be correctly aligned. To complete the model, we use the handy dandy locking tab mechanism and twist the turret into place atop the hull. And with that, the 28mm or 56th scale M26 Pershing from Rubicon Models is completed, and I'm really pleased with this. It looks remarkably like a Pershing, and Pershings do look pretty cool, so that is certainly a good thing. This is a gaming piece, so it's not going to be quite as accurate as a display model might be. Most people aren't going to buy this expecting a super detailed display piece, but there's always one. That's not to say the detailing is bad at all, in fact I think it's quite good, and if you did want to use this as a display model, you absolutely could. It's well detailed enough that it wouldn't be the worst choice. That kind of thing does obviously depend on your goals with your display. The details are rather nice, though I'm no Pershing surgeon, so I couldn't tell you if and how accurate it is, but it does look nice, plus it should be sturdy enough to endure the hardships of tabletop combat. The kit itself was a lot of fun to put together. Rubicon's engineering is very good, and I didn't have to do any extra work to get the parts to fit, which makes the experience all the more pleasant. Of course I did have one issue, but that was caused by me not reading the instructions properly and not installing a part at the right time, and I can't blame the kit for that. So, minimal cleanup, a nice, easy and neat fit and plenty of options are what you get with this kit. I don't really give ratings here, but I give this 2 hearty thumbs up. If you've got any questions or comments, feel free to put them in the comment section below. If you want to watch me build kits like this one live, check out my Twitch channel. You can find the link in the description below. I do have some more Rubicon kits coming very soon, so keep an eye out for those. Be sure to subscribe and ring the bell here on YouTube to see more of my modelling shenanigans. And if you'd like to see my videos a bit early before there's any ads, consider becoming a patron. Being a patron gets 3 hearty thumbs up. You can find links to Patreon and all of my other things like Discord and social media in the description below. Take care of yourselves, be excellent to each other, and thanks for watching. Farewell.